Hello, everyone. It's Kelly from the Hub. I'm here today with our friend Britany Mellinger from Hub. Hello, Britany. How are you?
I'm doing all right. How are you, Kelly?
I'm doing well, thank you. So we've been exploring a lot of housing topics over the past times that we have been together, and I have to ask you this. So when I was a tenant, I think some of the diciest stuff came when, the faucet broke or like the bathtub got stopped up in a funky way that wasn't me, or I don't know, something. It always seemed to be around plumbing. But and then I had to like call the landlord.
Mm-hmm.
So can you just walk us through like how to do it right and like proper, I guess, from both sides so that everybody knows how to do it so we can avoid some of those pitfalls?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there's nothing worse than your public not working. So it's always good to know how to approach it. The first thing we always say is open and active, proactive communication is key. So making sure that you're reaching out to your landlord right when you're starting to have the issue, not when your toilet hasn't worked in 3 weeks and it's overflowing. So make sure that you reach out, and it's always good to have communication in writing. Now, after that, you want to establish, is this a routine repair or is this a serious habitability issue? And
Oh,
when we
what's
talk,
the difference?
so a routine issue might be a small hole in the wall, a leaky faucet, a tear in the carpet, something that needs to be addressed, but it's likely not going to result in danger to the health and the safety of the residents. Now,
Oh,
when we talk habitability, we're talking there's no running water, there's no heat, electricity, there's issues with the sewer, you can't secure the windows or the doors, you've got toxic mold. There's serious issues happening with the property that can really impact your health.
oh.
So these are things that you want to let the landlord know, and you want to let them know right away.
Do I
Now,
handle
I
these
want
things
to
differently? The hole in the carpet versus the toxic mold, do I handle them differently?
start out with the same approach, letting the
Okay.
landlord know what the issue, knowing what's written in your lease, so whose responsibility is what. But it really impacts what options you have if your landlord isn't very responsive right away. So if it's just a small issue, something that it would be great to have taken care of, we don't recommend that you look into breaking your lease or withholding part of your rent, filing a lawsuit against your landlord. That's just not something that's acceptable under the Pennsylvania Landlord Tenant Act.
So you
And
should
now this
meet,
is a
you should meet equal with equal.
Exactly. Yeah,
Okay.
that's an overreaction, and then it's not provided. Now, I do want to specify that I am not an attorney, so I can't give you any kind of legal advice, but I'm just laying out the steps that you should take or that you have
Perfect.
available to take, and you can decide what works for your situation.
Okay.
Um, so under the Pennsylvania Landlord Tenant Act, there's something called the implied warranty of habitability. It's a little bit of a clunky title because no one can actually say habitability correctly.
Yeah, I the other
But
words every single time. All right. Okay. Habitability. Here we go. The implied, what's it called?
warranty
The
of
implied
habitability.
warranty of habitability. I'm ready for it. Give it to us.
So it's called implied because it's not typically going to be written out in your lease that your landlord has to provide you a livable unit, but it's implied in the context of the lease, and it's been established through case law over the years as different attorneys have brought different cases regarding housing issues. So this basically states that your landlord is responsible to give you a livable unit that you can actually reside in. And if they don't, there are a couple steps that you can take.
Okay.
Now, before we take any steps, I will probably say this 20 times throughout the time of our chat, but please communicate in writing. If you're not sure where to start, not sure what language you feel comfortable using, LHOP's got a landlord tenant guide that's available on our website. Check it out. It's got sample letters, both for your first notice, for your follow-up notice, and then if you choose to take any additional steps, there's different letters that you can plug in your information and your issue, and that can kind of guide you throughout this.
That's super
Now,
helpful
when I
because not all of us are good at just making up a letter in our head. So that's awesome that you've got samples there for us to be able to use. Perfect. Okay. So I write the letter, or email, and I give it to my person, and then what?
So if you're writing a physical letter, make sure you keep a copy for yourself. If you're writing an email, make sure you keep that record, or a text, keep the record. But after that, you want to allow a reasonable amount of time for your landlord to respond to you. So what's reasonable is the follow-up question that I bet you are about to ask, Kelly.
You know me.
It really depends. It depends on the situation. So if you don't have any heat in January and it's 0 degrees out, that's going to be a much more urgent issue than no heat in, say, June when it's 80 degrees out.
Right.
So if it's something that needs to be addressed really immediately, it might only be a couple hours. However, if it's, the heat right now, I would wait a week and see. So best case scenario, your landlord gets your notice and says, great, let me fix that right away because I want to maintain my property well, because it's my investment and because I care about you as a tenant.
Yeah.
Now, let's be honest, that doesn't always happen. So if the landlord doesn't communicate back, or they don't address the issue to your satisfaction, communicate in writing again and allow some time. So if that still doesn't work, you've got a couple options. Depending on where you live, you could contact a code enforcement department. So each municipality has different resources for there. So you'd want to call your borough or your township office, see if there's code enforcement, and see if they would have any kind of inspection that could encourage your landlord to be able to address the issue.
Okay.
But if that's not available in your area, and it's not available in many parts of Lancaster County, there are a couple other things that you can do. So if you have communicated in writing, you've left reasonable time, the landlord still isn't addressing the issue, and if this is a serious issue, you could consider breaking your lease early. So you wouldn't pay any of the fees that would normally be attached. You should still get your security deposit back because the place isn't livable. So it's not reasonable to expect you to live there.
That's
Now,
a big deal.
it works in some situations, but a lot of times, you might have a family living there and it's a lot of hassle to find a new place, pack everything up and move right away. So that might not be a great situation for you. So another option would be to repair and deduct. So once you've communicated in writing, once you've left reasonable time, the landlord still hasn't addressed it, go ahead and get a qualified contractor out there to get an estimate for repairing the issue. Let your landlord know that you've done that and say, hey, Mr. Bill's Plumbing Services come out and they say it's going to cost $200 to fix the issue. Since you haven't been able to get to it, I'd be happy to take care of this for you, and I'm just going to deduct this from next month's rent. And that is an option that you have. A lot of times landlords won't want to do that because maybe that's not their preferred vendor. Maybe it costs more than they would like, and they would like to approach it a different way, but it can for them to action. And if they don't act, then you are well within your rights to go ahead, get that repair done. You want to get a receipt, keep a copy of that receipt for yourself, and then submit a copy to your landlord as well, along with your next rent check, deducting the cost of the repair from that rent. Now, to do this, you need to make sure that the cost of the repairs are less than 1 month's rent.
Oh, so if you live in a place where, let's say your rent is $700 and to fix the toxic mold would be $950, now what?
Yeah, then you can't use that option. Then
Okay.
you might want to consider option number 3, which would be withholding part of your rent. So once you've communicated, once you've left reasonable time for the landlord to address the issue, if you're still not getting a response, you can choose to withhold part of your rent. Now, this is something that a lot of tenants get wrong. A lot of tenants go right ahead, right away and say, nope, I'm not paying rent since this issue isn't fixed. That's not really what this is about. What you want to do is withhold the portion of rent proportional to the part of the unit that you can't use. So say you've got an issue in your bathroom, and that's one of 5 rooms in your house. You would only want to withhold 20% of your rent, because it's just that one room that you can't use. So by withholding that rent, you're communicating to your landlord that that room is entirely unusable. You can't use it, so therefore you shouldn't be paying for it.
Okay.
So once
Okay, that makes sense. Okay.
So you don't want to go ahead and spend that money. You want to instead set it aside in a separate account, ideally an escrow account, until the issue is addressed. Now, if you're going to choose to do this, it's always best to consult code enforcement or some legal assistance. That way you've got a professional that's on your side that can back you up that this is a serious issue. Because if you are withholding rent, then your landlord can take you to court for that unpaid rent. And you would want to make sure that you've got proper documentation about the issue. So photographs of it, copies of your communication that you did in writing already, and any communication with any experts that can speak on the situation.
All right, Britany, I have to ask this question. I love this advice, but I gotta tell you, when push comes to shove and my brother calls me because this is gonna happen in his apartment, I'm gonna start remembering what you said, and I'm not gonna get it right. And I'm gonna tell him can I just say, la la la, my brother, will you please call LHOP because they know all the stuff? And then do you do that? Do you help people walk them through the steps?
Yeah, absolutely. Call our intake specialist, Eileen in Lancaster or Elena in York. They are both wonderful, and they can walk you through step-by-step what you need to do. Another great resource for you is that landlord tenant guide that I mentioned earlier. It's got all of the steps laid out in writing, super simple. So that way you know exactly what you have to do and exactly what your options are. But if you do have further questions after that, please feel free to reach out to our office, and we're happy to help.
All right, you guys are so good at all this landlord tenant stuff, and I really appreciate it, but I thought you guys were fair housing people.
Yes. So this is actually a fair housing issue as well.
How?
Even though it is an issue between landlords and tenants, a landlord's responsibility to treat their tenants equally, regardless of race, color, religion, national origin, sex, familial status, age, or disability, that doesn't start with them selecting a tenant to live there. They have to provide services equitably as well. So they're responsible. Go ahead, Kelly.
Sometimes a landlord might not fix my faucet because of one of those protected classes? I'm not trying to
we would hope that wouldn't happen. We would hope that landlords do provide that equally, and we do provide that guidance to landlords and property managers that reach out to us. But that's why the Fair Housing Act exists, to protect tenants from being treated differently on those characteristics, on those protected classes that have nothing to do with their ability to be a good tenant. So if you do feel that you're being treated unequally or unfairly in this area, please give us a call. We're happy to talk with you about your options.
Every single time I learn stuff, and that's why you guys are great. So thank you as always. We'll stick the landlord tenant guide. We'll stick that link to this as well. It's just good to have. I actually keep a copy over here in my desk, and then, when my brother calls. Yeah. All right.
You've got it ready.
I know. Britany, as always, thank you very much. You and the whole team at LHOP. That sounds wonderful. We'll see you again, all right? Bye,
Thanks,
everybody.
Kelly. Bye.